to get promoted within companies. That 2/3 of all salaried employees in large American companies have some writing responsibility. So my concern is that we're faced with a lot of kids who would rather do a lot of other things than write. Every year, I give my kids a half sheet of paper the second day of school. I say, don't even put your name on it. I said, I'm going to say a word out loud, and I want you just to write the first things that come to your mind. Ready? Ready, kids? The word is writing. Every year, what do you think the number one word comes back to me is? Sucks is number 2. Boring is number 3. Hate is number 1. Hate. One kid wrote, hate runs through me. Not worried about that kid. He's very poetic. One kid wrote, I hate writing so much I'd rather cut myself than write an essay. Great, come on in. Let's spend a year together. Right? And so my concern is we got to get these kids up, because a lot of kids, we live in a culture, especially in California, in which writing has not been valued by the testing culture. I'm going to get to that in a minute. The largest study done of secondary writing in the United States of America in the last 40 years is Writing Next. If you haven't read it yet, I would Google it and look at it. But this whole idea that writing well is not an option anymore for young people. It is now a necessity into the world that they're heading into. It used to be that writing was kind of more important for the college-bound kid, and now they're finding that the knowledge and skills required for both higher ed and for the employment world are now about the same. So reason number 2 is that we want to get kids to be career ready. Reason number 3 is we want kids to come to Cal State Fullerton or one of the other fine Cal State systems or one of the UC colleges. I want to get my kids eligible. I know that not every one of my kids is going to be university bound, but my job is to raise their literacy level as much as possible so that that's an option that's still on the table for them. How important is writing for the college-bound student? Let's take a guess here. Now, when the old SAT, which was 2,400, scored out of 2,400, they found kind of a tipping point. Like, if students would score at this certain level, it was a strong indicator that once they got here, Cal State Fullerton, that they would make it. So out of 2,400, what do you think that tipping point is? I'm going to pause for 5 seconds. Pick the smartest person at your table and take a quick guess. Would that person go? So here we go. Answer is 1,550. What does that mean for us when we go back into our classrooms soon? 1,550. 1,550. What percentage of California kids can hit that 1,550? Answer, less than half. And if you're a student of color, your chances are significantly sliced. This is an equity issue. This is not an IQ issue. This is a language access issue. These are kids who are not given the reading and writing practice needed to compete at this level. And so, famous writing researcher Peter Elbow once said, you've got to play a lot of bad piano before you can play the piano, right? You got to do a lot of bad writing before you can write. And I'm afraid that in California, that writing hasn't been on the front burner in a lot of classrooms. When we look at how few kids of color are being eligible to make it into university, it might also behoove us to take a moment and look at David Conley's book, College Knowledge, in which what he did is he looked at the levels of literacy kids need to compete at the university, and that's up here. And then they looked at where kids were leaving K-12, and that's down here. And so there's a gap between where they are and where they need to be. And Conley's book looked at what we can do when we go back into our classrooms Monday morning and teach our kids. And I'm not going to read the book to you. I'm going to read one line of the book to you. Conley said, if we could institute one change to make students more college ready, it should be to increase the amount and quality of writing students are expected to produce. Look, it's a hard time to be a teacher. There's no way you're going to do everything that's in that curriculum guide. Writing takes time, which means something else has to go. But I want us to remember this idea. If we have kids who are college bound, number one thing we can do for them: more writing and better writing instruction. When I think of Robert, this kid needs more writing and more writing. He's a smart kid. He's unskilled, but he's a smart kid. He needs a lot more practice than he's been currently being given. Writing prepares kids for college is number 3. Number 4, which I purposely held off a little bit for, is guess what? Writing is now tested. Here's an old question on the California high school exit exam, which is now dead, now defunct. You know, which of the following themes is developed in the article A, B, C, or D? Here's a different way of asking what a theme is in a book. Identify Golding's central theme in Lord of the Flies and analyze how this theme is developed through the author's use of symbolism. And what I want to suggest is that when we ask kids to write, or we give them assessments or tests, that we want to be very cognizant of the question, what does this thing I'm asking them value? What does that question value? It has a value. I'm not saying multiple choice does not have a value. It has some value, but that's a very different value than